Readers, yesterday we read some reviews in preparation for reading Pride. So, we know that this novel is a remix of a famous love story called Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. The story was written in 1797 in England. It's about a young woman named Elizabeth Bennet and her elder sister Jane. In Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth first detests, then begins to fall in love with a wealthy, arrogant man named Darcy, and her sister Jane falls in love with his close friend. There is also a character named Wickham, who Darcy hates, and the Bennets are fond of, at least at first. And wealth and status are very important in Pride and Prejudice. In that book, everyone is white, but only some people have money and status. And now, Ibi Zoboi wrote Pride, a remix of this story over 200 years later, and she set it in Bushwick, Brooklyn. We know from the reviews that in this version, all the characters are people of color, but they are not all the same class, and we'll probably find out about other differences as well. We know that the narrator of Pride is Zuri, a teenager who describes her family, the Benitez family, as Haitian Dominican. Zuri lives in Bushwick, a neighborhood of Brooklyn. We also know that the neighborhood is beginning to undergo gentrification. That's a term to describe what happens when more affluent residents move into a working class neighborhood and change how it looks and feels and who gets to live there. You may immediately feel sympathetic to that perspective. Perhaps your neighborhood has changed. My cousins, for instance, live in the city and they see Whole Foods and Starbucks replacing bodegas and small businesses. They bring that perspective to this novel. And for some of you, you may feel like your neighborhood never changes, and that may be a good or not so good feeling. Which brings me to the work that we will tackle today. The truth is, every reader brings something different to a story. Two of us, or 30 of us, or 1,000 of us can read the same story and will each bring a different perspective to the novel because we each bring our own story to the book in front of us. At the start of a novel, you know that readers want to lose themselves and simply live in the characters' skins. But as you begin to enter this novel, you will also try some meta thinking, where you are alert to your own perspective as you read. Will you especially consider how parts of the story may serve as a mirror, giving you a sense of seeing yourself, and other parts may feel more like a window, helping you see other people's experiences? Chapter 1. It's a truth universally acknowledged when rich people move into the hood, where it's a little bit broken and a little bit forgotten. The first thing they want to do is clean it up. But it's not just the junky stuff they'll get rid of. People can be thrown away too, like last night's trash left out on the sidewalks or pushed to the edge of wherever all broken things go. What those rich people don't always know is that broken and forgotten neighborhoods were first built out of love. The new owners are moving into the mini mansion across the street today. For the last few months, construction crews have been giving that abandoned house an extreme makeover, Bushwick edition. They gutted and renovated the best thing on our block, that rundown, weed infested, boarded up house. Now it looks like something that belongs in the suburbs. with its wide double doors, sparkling window, and tiny manicured lawn. I pull back the curtains to greet my little corner of Bushwick and Jefferson Avenues, my very own way of stretching out my arms and yawning at the morning sun. This is where I see words swim in and around my neighborhood like dust from overhead train tracks. It's all poetry. So I pull those words together and try to make sense of it all. My hood, my Brooklyn, my life, my world, and me in it. All right, readers, go ahead and pause the video and take a minute to jot your thinking in your reading notebook. What have you learned so far about this girl, this place she lives in? Were there any parts that felt like mirrors, where you felt as if your own experience is reflected here? Were there any parts more like windows, helping you see a new perspective? Readers, I love how much insight we're already getting into Zuri and her neighborhood, that she loves her neighborhood and is anxious about it changing. That line where she says, rich people don't always know that broken and forgotten neighborhoods were first built out of love. What a line. And Zuri seems like an especially alert, awake teenager. The way she greets her little corner, the way she sees poetry in the train tracks and the morning sun. What an interesting person. And did you already find some mirrors and windows? There were a few parts where she was talking about her neighborhood getting an extreme makeover, and the gentrification. Were any of the things that she's talking about her neighborhood, were those windows or were those mirrors for you? Maybe a chance where you got to see a little bit of her perspective that felt unfamiliar to you. And that's important, as those windows will help you connect and empathize. And that's why these mirrors and windows matter, because the story is interacting with your own identity. If you pause to think about that for a moment, you can deepen your connection to and empathy with new characters and places. And at the beginning of a story, you are envisioning and connecting and losing yourself in the story. So I'm going to keep reading, and as you listen, keep doing that work that you always do at the start of a novel, where you learn as much as possible about these new people and this place, and you imagine and envision the scenes. And stay alert as well to how your perspective interacts with the story, where you find these windows and mirrors. Everything is how it's supposed to be, except for that mini mansion that's like a newly polished pair of Jordans thrown in with a bunch of well worn knockoffs. Still, I remind myself that today is special, and I won't let those new neighbors move in messing that up. My big sister Jane is coming home from her first year of college after finishing up a school internship, and she'll be spending the rest of her summer break with me. Mama's got a welcome back dinner all planned out. I fluff up my thick, kinky fro and throw on an old pair of jean shorts. They're hand-me-downs from Jane, and they're even tighter than they were last summer. Mama has joked that my curves have finally kicked in at 17. Not that I was waiting for them. The Haitian Dominican Benitez sisters already get enough attention on the street and at school as it is. I slept late, but I can hear my younger sisters, Marisol, Layla, and Kayla, joking and laughing in the kitchen as they help Mama with the welcome back dinner. Peeling batatas, seasoning the chicken, boiling the hibachulas, and soaking the dry salted fish for bacalao. Papi must be sleeping in because he worked overtime last night, and I know he wants to avoid all the noise. I get it though. Sometimes I would rather hear the sound of roaring buses, zooming cars, and blaring music over my sister's constant cackling, and Mama's too. She's the loudest of them all, and she can be the most embarrassing. Me, Poppy, and Janae are the quiet ones in my family. All three of us would rather fold into each other on the couch, read a book, or watching a documentary than gossip with Mama. Readers, what more did you learn here? What felt familiar and what felt new? Where did you find mirrors and windows? Take a minute to jot your thinking in your notes. Pause the video for a few minutes. Readers, it's fascinating because many of you probably relate in very different ways to what we're finding out about Zuri, her family, and her neighborhood. Some of you might say that cooking is an important part of your family too, a way to celebrate and bring people together. Some of you might have said that you love to hang out with your siblings or cousins and talk and be noisy like Kayla, Layla, and Marisol. Or some of you might have said that you're more like Janie, Poppy, and Zuri. You're quiet and you like to hide out with a book. What's great about the work that you just did is how you didn't look for ways in which you are exactly like Zuri. Each person is distinct, and you won't often find that you are exactly like any one character. But what you are finding is that you share some similar perspectives. It's also beautiful how, when you noted a window, like how you might have said that cooking isn't really that important to your family, you didn't think, I can't relate. Instead, you thought of a moment as offering the possibility of a new experience, a new perspective. Rudine Sims Bishop calls those sliding glass doors, moments that offer new visions, not just in your novel, but for your reader's own life. Go back to the lesson platform to watch part 2 of today's lesson.